Hello everyone, welcome to week 2 of the MOOC on Media, Cultural Dynamics and Social Change. This is Unit 5 of the module on Communication and Society. As we continue our journey through the MOOC on Media, Cultural Dynamics and Social Change, this particular unit on role of communication in society invites you to reflect on something which is very much pertinent and which shapes our everyday life in ways we often overlook, that is communication. Whether it is a casual conversation, a social media post, a public campaign, or a cultural expression, communication acts as an invisible thread that connects individuals, communities, and institutions within a society. In this unit, we shall explore how communication functions as a foundation of social interaction and why it is considered essential for the development and cohesion of any community. You will understand not only why communication is important for personal growth, for expression and collective understanding, but also how society itself influences the communication patterns, behaviors, and channels. Communication does not exist in isolation. It evolves with social norms, cultural values, power structures, and technological changes. We will also examine the strong relationship between communication and social change. Throughout history, meaningful social transformations, whether related to education, gender injustice, public health, or demographic participation, have been driven by powerful communication strategies that informed, persuaded, and mobilized people. And towards the end of this unit, you will begin to see communication not just as a tool for exchanging information, but as a dynamic force that shapes cultural identities, challenges inequalities, and drives social progress. So let us move ahead and explore how communication becomes the heartbeat of society and a catalyst for change. So the basic objectives of this unit is to explain how communication serves as a cornerstone for social interaction and cohesion. Second important objective, to understand how communication facilitates education, dissemination of knowledge, social integration, and national development. To identify how cultural, historical, political, and social factors shape communication processes. And lastly, to describe how communication influences the development of norms, values, behaviors, and social identity. Now, when we talk about the role of communication in society, what do we mean by that? Now, we all know that communication is not just a part of society. It is a very foundation that holds different communities together. It functions like the binding force or cement that connects individuals, ideas, and institutions. Without communication, meaningful social interaction would be impossible. Communication is not limited to written or spoken words only. It also includes gestures, symbols, media messages, cultural expressions, and digital exchanges. In order to truly understand the importance of communication in society, we must explore how it influences human behavior, strengthens social bonds, and facilitates collective progress. Now, before moving ahead, let us try to understand the meaning of socialization. Socialization basically is a lifelong process through which individuals learn the norms, values, customs, and cultural practices of the society. Scholars from disciplines like sociology, anthropology, and social psychology, they use this particular term to explain how people become functioning members of a community. Through socialization, individuals develop social habits, communication skills, emotional responses, and behavioral patterns that enable them to participate effectively in social life. Now, socialization, it begins from childhood and it continues throughout our life. When we say that someone is socializing, what do we mean by that? So we usually refer to the act of interacting, how they interact in the society or how they mingle with the people. But in a broader sense, socialization, it shapes our identity and worldviews. Now, there are basically different types of socialization. The first is the primary socialization. Now, primary socialization takes place during early childhood within the family itself. Children imitate and absorb behaviors, attitudes, and expressions from parents or caregivers. For example, if a child observes negative remarks being made at home, they may adopt that behavior as socially acceptable. Second important type is secondary socialization. This happens when individuals interact with wider social groups, such as schools, peer groups, or workplaces. Adolescents and adults, they learn how to behave as members of different social environments. The third one is the developmental, anticipatory, and resocialization. So these are the forms that refers to advanced stages where individuals prepare for new roles, they anticipate future responsibilities, or relearn the social behaviors according to changing life circumstances. Now, the different agents of socialization like family, education institutions, peer groups, religion, workplace, and especially mass media, it play a major role in shaping human behavior. Media in particular, it has emerged as a powerful force of social influence. Television, digital platforms, and online communities that guide how children and adults perceive the world, how they form different opinions, and how they engage with the society. So from childhood cartoons to adult news consumption, media-based communication constantly informs, it educates us, it influences us. In fact, it introduces individuals to the larger whole, helping them to understand the cultural diversity, social roles, and global issues. Thus, communication and socialization, they're very much interrelated. They closely linked to one another. Without communication, the process of socialization would simply not exist. Now, through the process of socialization, individuals gradually they acquire the ability to perform various social roles, such as being a friend, student, employee, or citizen. And although socialization is a lifelong process, it has the strongest impact during childhood and adolescence. When this process occurs smoothly, we often remain unaware of it because the dominant values, the different norms and beliefs of society, it naturally becomes our own. As a result, we internalize these cultural lessons and begin to accept them as self-evident truths. We adopt what is considered appropriate behavior, values, and beliefs, and learn to act it in ways that society deems acceptable. Now, in modern society, mass media functions as one of the most influential agents of socialization. From a sociological standpoint, the media significantly shape nearly every aspect of our daily lives. their impact, it goes beyond simply informing us. It extends to shaping how we perceive the world and how we engage with others. In this way, mass media are deeply intertwined with the formation and maintenance of social relationships. Now let us try to understand the relation between social and national integration. Communication acts as a unifying force that promotes harmony and collective identity among the people. The word communication itself, this is rooted in the idea of making something common, which reflects its purpose of connecting individuals through shared understanding. In the same way, the word community refers to a group of people who share common bonds such as language, beliefs, culture, or collective goals. Even in modern times, communities are not only defined by physical proximity, but also by emotional and intellectual connections. People linked by shared interests, causes, or digital networks also form communities. On a broader scale, this sense of belongingness, it expands into the concept of a nation, where people identify with a shared history, culture, and vision. Now, historically, communication has played a very important role in building national unity. For instance, even before the British rule, the Indian subcontinent, it consisted of numerous kingdoms and territories with very little connection between them. People from one region had limited understanding of other regions due to linguistic and cultural barriers. However, the introduction of a common education system and communication channels, it has helped people from diverse backgrounds connect, exchange ideas, and recognize common aspirations. And this exchange of ideas eventually fueled the freedom movement, proving that communication can inspire collective action and national consciousness. Now, in a democratic society, communication through independent media, it allows citizens to participate actively in public life. Media platforms informs people about social issues, give space to multiple voices, and encourage dialogue. By enabling the people to express their opinions and engage with national concerns, communication strengthens both social cohesion and national integration. Why communication is so important? Communication plays a very vital role in shaping the society and improving the human life. It is not just a tool for exchanging the words. It is also a powerful medium for spreading knowledge, for solving the problems, for building awareness and connecting people with opportunities. Let us look at some of the important points as far as the communication is concerned, as far as its role in the society is concerned. The first important point is that communication ensures the smooth flow of information to society. Now, education institutions, research centers, and scientific bodies, they constantly generate valuable knowledge, whether it is about preventing diseases, about improving agricultural practices, about encouraging healthy lifestyles, or developing new technologies and policies. However, research is meaningful only when it reaches the people who need it. If such knowledge it remains confined within laboratories, academic papers, or experts, it benefits only a few people, right? So for real social progress, this information must reach the farmers, it must reach the healthcare workers. It must reach the students and communities across urban and rural areas. Here, communication becomes a bridge between knowledge creators and knowledge users. In a nation where a large section still lives in rural areas and depends on agriculture, communication campaigns through radio, through community media, through mobile messages, or maybe through other digital platforms, it helps translate complex research into simple, usable guidance for daily life. The second important point that we want to talk about here as far as the importance of communication in a society is concerned is that communication supports inclusive education and literacy. Now, official statistics, it may show a very high literacy rate, but being able to sign one's name, it does not guarantee that meaningful education. Many people, especially adults, from economically weaker backgrounds, they cannot attend formal schools. Yet learning is their right. Now, through education communication tools such as community radio lessons, televised education programs, audio-visual content, and digital learning platforms, knowledge can be delivered directly to their homes and communities. And this makes education accessible, flexible, and affordable, ensuring no one is left behind simply because they cannot attend a classroom. Third important point is that communication spreads awareness about development and public welfare initiatives. Now, governments and organizations, they introduce many schemes that are aimed at improving living conditions, be it sanitation drives, health insurance programs, agricultural subsidies, digital literacy missions, or employment opportunities. However, lack of awareness often prevents people from taking advantage of these benefits. So, communication through public announcements, digital outreach, posters, community meetings, and media campaigns, it ensures that people are informed, empowered, and encouraged to participate in development efforts. It transforms citizens from passive recipients to active participants in nation building. The fourth important point is that communication promotes social harmony and dialogue. Now, communication does not only inform, as we all know, it also heals, connects, and unites. In fact, it plays a significant role in easing social tensions and preventing conflicts. Now, history shows that even during times of unrest, the introduction of communication channels, it has helped people express their concerns, negotiate, and find peaceful solutions. Now, for instance, during the colonial times, the public platforms were created as a way to give people a space to voice their opinions and their concerns. So this was a form of controlled communication meant to reduce public unrest. So in all these ways, communication proves to be a transformative force, informing minds, uplifting communities, and guiding the societies towards progress and peace. Now let us try to understand the impact of society on the communication process. Communication does not exist in a vacuum. It is deeply rooted in the social fabric of any community. The way people communicate, the words they choose, the platforms they use, and even what they choose not to say. All of these are shaped by societal values, cultural traditions, economic conditions, political ideologies, and technological environments. And just as communication influences society, Society also shapes the very structure and nature of communication. They function like mirrors facing each other, each reflecting and reshaping the other continuously. Now, media is also said to be as a reflection of society. It is often said that if you truly want to understand a nation, observe its media, observe its different types of media. The tone of news reporting, the freedom to question authority, the representation of gender, caste, class, and minority voices, and the kind of narratives that dominate mass communication. This reveal more about a society than official reports ever could. And in a democratic system, communication tends to encourage public participation, debate, criticism, and accountability. And media in such societies acts as a watchdog. So this shows us that communication policies, journalistic freedom, and media ethics, they are shaped by the values and power structures of the society they exist in. Now let us try to understand the cultural influence on communication. How culture influences communication. Society also influences communication through culture and tradition. The language we use, the metaphors we understand, our non-verbal cues, our humor, and even our silence are all culturally conditioned. A gesture considered respectful in one culture might be interpreted very much differently in another culture. Suppose, for example, in certain cultures, direct eye contact, it signifies confidence. While in other cultures, when you make direct eye contact, it is seen as a sign of disrespect. So thus, communication is not only about message delivery. It is about how societal norms shapes, the interpretation of messages. So, what can we look into? There needs to be some kind of balance. Ideally, there should be a healthy and balanced relationship between society and communication. Society should influence media to uphold cultural identity, ethics, and collective well-being, while communication should also challenge harmful practices, encourage critical thinking, and inspire positive change. However, in a modern media environment, especially with the rise of global digital platforms, this balance is shifting. Communication is no longer shaped only by local social values, but also by market forces, algorithms, trends, and global cultural flows, sometimes leading to cultural dilution or oversimplification. So thus we have seen that communication is one of the most powerful agents of social transformation. Through communication, education, and persuasion, it influences how people think, how they interpret reality, and how they decide to respond to change. Communication also acts as a catalyst for new lifestyles and cultural shifts. In today's hyper-connected world, communication introduces us to new values, to global festivals, lifestyle trends, and cultural practices. And these days, many urban youth, they celebrate events like Friendship Day, Valentine's Day, or Halloween, which are actually global media exports rather than indigenous traditions. So this shows how communication can normalize new cultural behaviors over a period of time. At the same time, traditional practices that receive less media visibility gradually become marginalized. So the question that arises is that, are we choosing what we celebrate, or are media trends choosing for us? This is something to ponder upon. This is something to debate upon. Now let us try to look at the historical role of communication in social reform. India's history, it provides powerful examples of communication as a tool for nation building and reform. Raja Ram Mohan Roy, he was a very renowned social reformist at one point of time. He learned English specifically to counter the colonial narratives and to launch newspapers that voiced Indian perspectives. And even Gandhiji and other nationalist leaders, they used journals, pamphlets, and writings to awaken the people against colonial injustice. In Assam, the publication of Arunodoy in 1846, it became a landmark movement in creating a space for socio-cultural awakening. Now, if we look at the post-independent period, after independence, All India Radio became a national voice for development communication. In a country with high illiteracy levels and limited education access, All India Radio played the role of a mobile classroom, health advisor, and agricultural mentor. Programs on hygiene, farming techniques, women's welfare, and scientific awareness, it helped people adopt progressive practices even without formal education. And so this shows that communication is not just about information, it is also about empowerment. Communication, it opens doors to global knowledge systems, allowing societies to compare, to learn, to reject or adapt various ideas. It encourages critical thinking by exposing people to multiple perspectives. And this exposure, it leads to informal decision making and gradual change in societal attitudes. Now, from reform movements to digital activism, from rural awareness programs to global cultural exchanges, communication shapes society in very visible and invisible ways. And when used responsibly, it becomes a force for education, for liberation and progress. Dear friends, as we conclude Unit 5, it becomes evident that communication is much more than a tool. It is a lifeblood of society. From shaping individual behavior through socialization to facilitating national integration, communication plays a central role in connecting people, sharing knowledge, and promoting social cohesion. We have seen how society influences communication processes through culture, through politics, through history and social structures. At the same time, communication actively drives social change by informing, educating, and persuading the masses. Whether it is spreading awareness about health, education, or development programs, or enabling dialogue among diverse groups, communication has the power to transform societies and guide progress. So, as responsible members of society, it is important to recognize this reciprocal relationship. While society shapes communication, communication also shapes society. And understanding this dynamic empowers you as learners and as future media practitioners to use communication ethically and effectively, promoting positive change while respecting the cultural diversity and social values. So with this, we have come towards the end of this unit. And in the next unit, we will try to go more deeper into media, culture, and their role in social change, building on the foundational understanding of communication we have developed here. Thank you.